Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the Indians from India, the subcontinent, being deported from the United States back to India. Now, as I understand it, it's only been like 1,000 or so far. But there are an alleged sort of 700,000 to 800,000, according to outfits like Amnesty International and those sort of things. So they underquote it by quite a lot. But there are supposedly, give or take 800,000 Indians living illegally in the United States. Now, these are the people that call these numbers, the same ones that say that there are only 4 million Mexicans living illegally in the United States. So let's look at these numbers. For as far back as I can remember, the claim has been there's only 10 or 11 million illegals living in the United States. And that was 40 years ago that claim was being made. The numbers stayed incredibly static for 25 years, which is, of course, nonsense. The numbers were increasing by approximately 1 million a year, even when the border was being somewhat policed. So, and then during the recent Biden administration, something in the order of 12 million illegals arrived in the United States. Now, if we add all that up, there's at the very least, there's around 30, absolute minimum, there's 30 million illegals. And the majority of those are Mexican. So if we do the proportions on that, that means there are somewhere in the order of 12 to 14 million Mexicans in the United States, which means there are, give or take, between 2.5 and 3.5 million Indians from the subcontinent. Now you add that to that, Bangladeshis and Pakistanis, then we're talking quite a lot here. Easily 5 million illegals just from the subcontinent alone. Now, these people are being, arrested and deported, or small numbers so far, but they're now being interviewed by usually media outlets that are quite sympathetic to mass migration and are very much against deportations for illegals. So let's go through this. So a number of them have been interviewed. So what I'll do is try and sort of create an amalgam, if you like, of all these interviews and look at the claims they're making, the assertions, and the sense of entitlement. So the average age of the people being deported is between 35 and say 45 years old, which took me a bit by surprise. I thought they would have been younger, but there's quite a few women amongst the illegals, and the men arrive first and they illegally work and then they bring the women out, their wives or other relatives. And so there's quite a few women being deported. The Indian Brahmins are trying to pretend that it's an outrage that Indians are being deported at all, and that given they're criminals, then that they're being handcuffed, and they perceive this as an outrage as well. How dare you disrespect us? Well, hold on, they're illegal. They've illegally entered the US. They've been paid illegal people smugglers to get them there. They've then bribed people to get fake documents. I mean, they've committed quite a few crimes here. Why shouldn't they be handcuffed if they're criminals? No, they're Indians. You can't do it, you damn white fascist fucking Nazis. So now there's a few that I'll concentrate on because they gave pretty precise details. Now, all of them are saying, look, you've got no idea how bad things are in India. The government says Indian government says unemployment's 10% or something, but the reality is unemployment is 80% plus. So 80% plus. Now, this is in a country of give or take 1.5 billion people. And I don't doubt it. All my interactions with India and Indians and so on would bear out this 80% unemployment. Now, the people that are employed in government jobs, they're not paid enough to get by. So the only way they can get by is by extracting bribes and by corrupt behaviour. So if you want anything done in India, the public servant who has to sign the form or tick the box or do whatever, and it doesn't matter whether it's getting a phone connected or import, export, or anything at all, you have to pay a bribe. Now, maybe you'll get it done anyway, but you could go on a waiting list that could go for years. If you want it done if you want the public servant to tick the box or sign the form sort of today or within a day or two, then you have to pay a bribe. Now, that's chump change in Western terms, but it's a lot of money to an Indian. Bear in mind that their average annual per capita income is like less than $2,000 a year. So, if you give them $20 or $50, that's a lot of money. So the other people who are employed are really the Brahmin, the rich Brahmin, the demigods, the keepers of the knowledge, in the caste class system of India, and they own all the businesses, or all the profitable businesses anyway. And they arrange, monopolies and oligopolies. Like if you're in a certain town or village or district, if you want to buy, rice or something like that, you have to buy it from the Brahmin-owned family. You can't buy it anywhere else. You're just not allowed to. And so it's very much a class-based economy where the Brahmins own all the profitable business. But they're not profitable businesses. They're just through extraction, through monopoly, oligopoly, cartel pricing, and so on. And they're the guys that make. So they don't have viable businesses. They just have corrupt, parasitic monopoly type businesses, and they screw the peasants to make their profits. They live like kings. Now there's then a class of servants that exist in India where they don't really get paid, but they're allowed to live in the houses of the rich. And some of these, they're not mansions in a true sense of the word, but they're allowed to have, and it's very much if you like, a badge of social honor that, I've got 100 servants. Oh, do you? Well, I've got 200. Oh, you're so important. So the number of servants you have is a reflection of just how much of a heavy hitter you are. And the Indians are incredibly status conscious in things, the bragging rights. Also, the bragging rights of, my daughter went to a Western white country and she's going to university there, and she got a job in some multinational firm. Oh, you're wow. The bragging rights there. And everybody wants to be able to brag about that in India. It's an essential component of bragging. So you got this oddly, perversely status conscious. Like if you can deceive other people and parasite off them, then your status is elevated. It's very strange. But nonetheless, that's how they think and act, or certainly the ones I've come across. Now, so unemployment is 80%, and the servants that live in the people the rich have, they're just allowed to sleep on the floor of the air-conditioned house, and they eat the leftover food that the rich people don't want, and that's their. And as Indian peasants on the street go, that's not a bad gig, but you wouldn't call it employment, or certainly not in any sort of meaningful sense of the word. So now even Indians that are doing kind of okay by Indian standards want to get out of India. And I've sounded the alarm on this sort of a number of times. There's close to a billion with a B, Indians that want to get the fuck out of India, and they only want to go to the White West. They don't want to go anywhere. They don't want to go to some dirt poor place in Africa or something. They just want to go to the rich White West and parasite off the rich White West, whether it's Australia or whether it's Britain or Western United States, Canada. The English-speaking ones are of preference to the Indians. So they want to, and all of them want to go there, and they're prepared to do close to anything to get to the West. So here's a guy who's this is one example here. Here's a guy who, okay, I want to go to the West. So what I'll do is I'll sell up everything I own, including a small farm and some vehicles and farm equipment. That's what I'll sell up everything I own. I'll then borrow money from as many people, relatives, as many people as I can. I'll borrow money from loan shark type goods to pay to go to the United States. Now, given that the traveling that needs to be done and the passages on ships and all that sort of stuff, and the guy wants to be fed and watered and all that. So the whole infrastructure, he's got to pay about $40,000. Now, any Indian that can rustle up $40,000, regardless of where he gets it from, is doing it by Indian standards. He's doing good. He is doing good, but he wants to. Now, the deal he makes with the relatives and the people in his village is that they all want to go to the West, every fucking one of them. So his job is to get to the West, somehow establish himself. He's the advanced sort of, the vanguard, if you will. He's the advanced guy. So he's going out to the West to somehow establish himself illegally, and then bring out his relatives, and then they bring their relatives, and then the whole fucking village comes. That's the sort of the vision these people have of how it's all going to pan out. So he's got a lot of responsibility. He's got to bring out the whole village to the United States. So they're all investing in him because they are going to, in theory at least, benefit from his arriving in the US illegally. So he's borrowed this money. He pays, ballpark $40,000, or claims he has. I don't think he has, but claims that he spent $40,000 going to the US illegally. He gets to the US illegally. Somehow he finds more money to then, bribe all sorts of other officials, Indians he knows, to get fake Social Security numbers, and then he gets the licenses. The Indian diaspora looks after him, giving him accommodation and helping him, and then he works for an Indian-owned business illegally. The Indian owner of the business knows that he's an illegal, and so on. And so the illegality is like a spider's web; it goes in all directions. And but he's been found, and he's been sent back to India. Now, I don't know how long he worked in the US and how much money he made there. Did he end up paying back the money he borrowed, and if so, but he's arrived back in India, and he's, the responsibility on his shoulders of getting it, or the entire village out to the white Western world. That's not on. Now he sort of, this guy certainly has expressed in the interview, he takes the view that, look, unemployment is really bad in here. There aren't any opportunities to really live a first world lifestyle. I can look on my laptop computer, I look on my phone, and this, I know what sort of a first world lifestyle is, and I want that. That's what I want. I have a right to a first world lifestyle, and I want to get, the only way I can have that is getting out of India. And the guy has no confidence. None of them do have any confidence in India at all going anywhere, or being able to be a viable economy for the majority. They've got no confidence in that at all. And the only place they want to go is to the West, and then again, given the Indians, the white West. Now, the entire population of the white, white West comes to what, 500 million. It's just English-speaking West, I mean, and comes to what, 500 million. Now, so twice that, double that of the people want to get out of India and all come to the English-speaking white West. And what's going to happen to the white West when they arrive? And then it's going to turn the white West into a third world basket case. The Indians just don't seem to get that. They just can't seem to comprehend that. They just think it's streets paved with gold, and if they get a piece of the action, then they're doing pretty good. Now, none of them had any problem about engaging in deceptive practices, duplicity, getting fake dog bribing. None of them had any problem. That's how things are done, and they even think it rather strange that anybody would take issue with that. Well, why? I want to go. Why can't I go? All right. Well, why don't you go to the Brahmins round the corner then and take their mansions? Why can't you do that? Why don't you do that? Why is it you have to go to the White West to take things in Parasite? Why don't you just march in and take the Brahmin's house? Why don't you do that? So it's very much a view that they have a right to go to white countries and take whatever they can lay their hands on. It's quite strange. Where does that mentality come from? I think it comes from Indian propaganda that makes out that India was this rich paradise where milk and honey flowed from the sky until evil, bad Whitey turned up and took it all away. I think it's because Indian propaganda is very much into that, depicting India as this super wealthy paradise until evil Whitey came along. Morally inferior Whitey at that, spiritually inferior as well. So, but looking at if you look at the wider issues here, there are Indians that are, selling the now the family farm. They're not getting rich on it. It's a subsistence, or probably a little bit better than subsistence living for the people that want to come to the West in particular. And they sell the family farm to some sleazy Indian loan shark, and then use that money to come illegally to the West, pay all the bribes, and do all the other bits and pieces, which they have no problem with. They just see that standard business. That's just how you do everything. And the idea of official, documents and impartial public servants and servants serving, but they have no concept of that at all. So they sell the family farm to a loan shark to get the money to come. So if it doesn't work out, they've got nothing. Now the same goes for, say, people, women in Thailand, where the whole village may put in the money to send one of their number to Australia to work in the sex industry, for example. And then there's a lot of responsibility on that young woman's shoulders. She's there to make the money to send back to the relatives in Thailand, but also to pave the way for more of her relatives to come over and all this sort of things. So all these third world basket case, all of them want to come to the White West, and none of them have anything to offer. None of them have got the skills, the education, the work history, the experience, or the attitude, or none of them have that. I mean, sure, there'll be the odd one or two. Of course there will be. Out of 1.5 billion Indians, there's got to be some. But this idea the whole third world wants to come to the West, sure they do. But what do they have to offer? How are they going to make the West rich or richer, or even continue to be wealthy? They're not. They're just parasites. And so the attitude of these Indians are that they're outraged that they've been deported. They said, well, why? Why? So I'm in the West illegally, I'm in the US illegally, and so I've broken all these laws. Okay, so I've got all these fake documents, I've bribed and this and that. But what's wrong with that? Why is that a problem? Why are you putting me in handcuffs and sending me back to India? Don't you know that India has got 80% unemployment? But it comes back to this idea, they're economic migrants. They're not fleeing, war and persecution and this and that. Now, they may try and fake it that they're refugees from something or other, but they're not. They're just economic migrants. Now, I feel bad for the guy. One guy, he sold a family farm to get the money to get to the United States, and now he hasn't got anything, and he wasn't there very long, and he's already lost his money, and he's back in India, and he's got nothing now. He hasn't even got the farm that he started with. I mean, he's in a bad place. I feel bad for the guy. Okay, but the decision to spend all that, to risk everything just to be able to illegally go to the United States, I mean, that's on him, isn't it? Now, the arguments that they put on are that there are so many Indians that are desperate to get out of India. I don't deny that, by the way. There's so many Indians that are desperate to get out of India, desperate to go to English-speaking rich white Western country. They don't go to some dirt poor African country, just the rich white countries. And they're desperate to go there, and they'll do anything to get there. But they're also encouraged by, there's a vast network of not only people smugglers, but United Nations agitators, NGO agitators. There's a vast network, agitation network, that encourages, helps, facilitates, organizes introductions with people smugglers, and so on and so forth. So these people are really, it's almost a siren call that they're getting, as well as the natural sort of thing. I want to go to a rich country so I can live a rich life. And again, it's the sense of entitlement that sort of throws me, though. Okay, I did something illegal, but it's not really illegal because I'm kind of entitled to go to a rich white Western country. You are? I mean, why? And that's not explained. And again, the articles are fairly sympathetic to the Indians, saying, well, look, if they're unemployed in India, why can't they come to the West? What's wrong with that? Okay, well, if unemployment, if there were gazillions of jobs in the West that are genuinely going unfilled, maybe there's a case to be made for large-scale migration. But 1 billion a billion fucking people want to come to the English-speaking West? No. So this gives, I think, an idea of what's going on in India and how these people have put themselves in a desperate situation. They've got aspirations well beyond any form of reality. Well, I'm entitled to a first world lifestyle in a first world country. No, you're not. You're not entitled to anything. Fuck you. I'm going to sell the family farm to then illegally travel, illegally bribe, and get illegal documents. I'm going to do all that and then illegally attempt to bring the rest of my family. No. You're looking at cases where the man's there with his wife and his sister. All of them have arrived illegally. We're talking over $100,000 in bribes and goodness knows what. Where did he get that fucking money from? If he can lay his hands on $100,000, he's doing all right. Now, what a lot of these people are doing is they're selling themselves. They're selling themselves into long-term slavery indenturement, and that needs to be. So the Indian guy, the rich Brahmin that's bought up a few, gasoline stations or corner stores or bodegas, as the Americans call them, then he wants a source of cheap labor. He says, well, I'll lend you the money to bring your wife or sister or brother or something out to America illegally. So it's another illegal act. So I'll lend you the money to do that. But then you have to work for me for $100 a week for 10 years. Otherwise, I'll tell the authorities that you're illegal. That type of thing. So it's creating this vast slave industry. Even though there's tough talk around the West, we don't tolerate slavery. It's indirectly it's encouraged on a mass scale because of this. But that's I guess these people are putting themselves into desperate circumstances. Selling the family farm, borrowing money from loan sharks, all this sort of stuff, and in order to get to the West illegally, and it just shows how much the pull factor. The propaganda factor in India that we were once rich. It's all those white people stole it, and also the mass people movement, propaganda, agitation, facilitation network that was heavily funded by US aid, for example. Maybe that'll sort of damp down a bit now. But it goes to show you these people are putting themselves in terrible circumstances. But really, there's close to 3 million Indians living illegally in the US. I would suggest. And should they all be evicted and deported back to India? Absolutely. And the Indian government doesn't want them back and is engaging itself in desperate measures to prevent the deportations. But I hope the Trump administration stays firm and that all these people are deported back to India where they belong. You've been Tassis today, and thank you for listening.